pick. It didn't feel like Xiaohu was playing in his wheelhouse. Multiple shockwaves going wide. Didn't cost the victory in the end, but has to look to his teammates, Let Me Tail and Sync Dream in particular, for really picking up the slack. So maybe you want to see him move away from the Oreo to another control mid, if that's what fits the comp. But carry, that's what I always love to see coming out of Xiaohu, because when he's playing from the front with damage, he is a sight to behold.
Yeah, he's amazing on a whole lot of these AD carries, even in the mid lane as well, as you were mentioning. And really, really nice stuff. But we are into Champion Select, ladies and gentlemen. Kalista and Sejuani going to be taking some time out here on the side of LD, and it's going to be Vladimir Nunu taken off the board here for Gamtee, and the Morgana, the Respect ban to come through. Same bans for Gamtee this time around, but LeBlanc going to be considered here for Passer, and that would be a definite change of pace here from the Karthus. And Xiaohu, now he can just counterpick whatever he wants. Huey thinking about the Grungle.
Yeah, Passer blind picking the LeBlanc seems to harken back to previous LD strategies where they were a bit more mid-centric, where the likes of Ahri and Zed were always considerations for the mid lane. LeBlanc still very strong on this patch, but it opens up a lot of control options, with Chalice only being 900 gold, faster to pick up that item, faster to start pushing out the wave clear, just negating a lot of the lane pressure from LeBlanc. But you just look over to players like Pawn to see how powerful this pick can be in the right hands.
It is ridiculous, and Passer will see what he can do with that one as a Voidless. Thinking about an Annie support here for Southwind. Unless it's going to go into the top lane, of course. We have seen it before.
It's still in the LPL. The top lane Annie Dream, Master 3 are into the semifinals. We could see it.
We certainly could, ladies and gentlemen. But Xiaohu and Tail now considering what they're going to take here. They can sort of safely pick up a mid laner now if they want to, as Tail thinking about the Lucian. And that's a flex pick.
The crazy world we live in is a Lucian flex pick. There's no rush for Xiaohu to lock in a mid laner, because of course they do have the red side 5th pick. Have shown the Lucian middle before. Has a decent laning matchup against the Sivir, so that's fine as well. We didn't comment on the fact that the big laning matchup from Week 1, the Sivir Annie, rose to priority again with all the priority Sivir picks coming through. The instant CC coming in for the engage with the on the hunt into potentially the secondary CC during the duration of that move speed increase makes this a really powerful pick lane for LD.
Yeah, looking nice so far. We'll see how they round this one out, as the consideration is going to be what was the Maokai. Now thinking about a Rise. We'll see whether that's going to come through. But Rek'Sai here for a Voidless, another one of the champions that he does favor. And we saw, especially yesterday, Rek'Sai still an incredible force there in the jungle. And they're really focusing a whole lot earlier, apart from the Rise pickup on the side of LD. And man, if this was a Darius...
It's not going to be a Darius.
That would have been a lot of early game focus, though, Papa Smith.
It would have been, but
my point would have been proof.
Shyvana makes a lot of sense. Of course, Teleport Smite already being hovered over. That is the other Teleport Smite laner of note. Probably has the more reliable laning phase. Definitely has a bit more lane pressure, just throwing on that burnout and running through the creeps. But top lane, Teleport Smite Hecarim has catapulted its way to probably the most contested top lane pick of any champion. The way you can deal so effectively with an enemy AD carry, with the Cinderhulk, with the challenging Smite, into the Trinity Force, into just the Home Guard boots. That 3-item core, 2 of which, of course, the boots and the Cinderhulk, not too expensive, and the Trinity Force, a massive purchase on Hecarim. The damage threat onto Sivir, a 500 range carry that we spent so much time explaining, struggles to put damage out because she has to respect ranges. She has to respect the horse when he's present or when he's not, because the teleport flank is always possible.
Yeah, and we'll see whether that one comes through, but I want to talk about this Kassadin lock-in here for Xiaohu. We saw Assassin last night playing that Kassadin so beautifully against an Azir of all champions, even in the laning phase, but we'll see how he goes against Passer's LeBlanc. And this matchup historically was fine for Kassadin, but now that he's been changed, I'm not sure how that one goes.
I feel like the laning phase will be similar, Atlas, just because you max the Q instead of, say, the Force Pulse, for example, and just look for those guaranteed trades. Not a skill shot, so just throw it out, get the magic resist shield, and LeBlanc has a very low base health to belie the fact that she's such a lane bully, so I feel like it'll be fine for Kassadin. He'll, of course, scale and potentially get very, very scary. We've already seen carry performances from Kassadin as recently as that EDG versus WE Game 5. But the wave clear, that's the one consideration. For both teams, Sivir excluded, is very low.
Yeah, well, we'll see how the game develops based on that one, though, as Passer and Xiaohu there, as you mentioned, have to get into melee range in order to clear out those waves. Of course, Passer able to get back out pretty quickly, as is Xiaohu after a couple of extra seconds, but you can see the bottom lane, the sort of low-range carries, more mobility there for Tail, and we'll see how he goes here on this Lucian. And Sync Dream, he's picked up the Thresh this time and had an MVP performance in the last game. We'll see whether he can repeat it here.
I mean, the lane swap's going to be the big consideration. We've seen a lot of teams opting into the lane swap with that Hecarim to get the very strong jungle follow with the smite. But remember, both these laners have the teleport smite. Both laners, to some degree, priced into the jungle follow to make that use of the early smite in particular and get the clearing going. We've seen Shyvana take these games early, but the late game, as we mentioned, Hecarim just so good at being that anti-AD carry.
Yeah, and is it a little bit better to be Sivir here with the spell shield? Of course, you can at least manage to shield away the onslaught of shadows. I
mean, there's always other threats out there. So the thing is, you can't necessarily hold on to that spell shield long enough. And it's the burst damage as well that could be massive.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are onto the Rift with LD versus Gamtee. Game 2 here. Gamtee looking to try and make this one a swift 3-0 victory, but LD now with a very different team comp. Not looking to scale up, looking for those mid-game fights. We'll see how this one goes. Of course, much more of a defensive fan coming through from our LD friends, as they're not looking for any particular lane swap. More than happy to have Sivir Annie go up against whatever they want, and Gamtee will see how they react. And it looks like they're going to opt in for that 2v2. The wife steal bottom lane, happy to head down there.
It's amusing to see, despite the fact that it looks like it's going to be standard 2v2 lanes, it's going to take a while for these top lanes to actually enter lane. The first one that calls the bluff and actually gets to early, maybe even use the smite to cause a bit of a jungle top lane push, might actually get the experience advantage. But until you have that extra information, you're just priced in to start at a jungle camp and go from there.
Yep, the cramps in the jungle.
Jungle cramping your style when it comes to laning.
That was beautiful. Well transitioned there, Papa Smithy has let me. He's going to start on the Krugs. Red buff start here for Huey on his own. A little bit sad, but able to get a bit of health back there from using the smite as a Voidless. Actually going to smite away the Krugs. This is really cute. And then head back over to this red buff with the Krug buff, able to stun up this camp as well. So a little bit nice, able to get very early experience onto this bottom lane of LD, as it's actually going to be the Gromp started for Gamtee. So even as far as that experience is concerned, they might actually meet in this lane at about the same time.
So, I mean, Rek'Sai has a very safe clear, so I don't mind this decision coming through. But the thing to consider, Atlas, is that if you're not getting a leash, the ability to smite that red gives you, effectively more than a potion's worth of level there. Like, it gives you a big heal that you might necessarily need to continue clearing the jungle. How much clearing can this Rek'Sai do? Level 2 hit instantly on both lanes. Very even trading in the bot.
Yeah, even, but Sync Dream taking a lot of damage, sort of in exchange for some health here, still available from Tail. The heal actually popped from Kabe, maybe a little bit frightened. The Death Sentence didn't actually land, so maybe a little bit unnecessary, but they do now have the health advantage there on the bottom side, despite the fact that Tail quite healthy in comparison to Sync Dream.
Amusingly, his predictive ability to juke a skill shot was better than his predictive use of the heal. I just assumed that the Death Sentence was going to hit and need that heal early, respecting the ignite, you have to say, from Sync Dream if that Death Sentence did register, but the result is a heal dragged out by Gamtee.
And look at Lemmy, he is so far ahead as far as that farm is concerned. Love Eat Potato, he's going to be able to clear out this wave now, but the horse, as you mentioned, doesn't have quite as good a laning phase, but you could almost be proven wrong by Let Me here in this situation.
He didn't shop Atlas. That's the big consideration, is that Shyvana went back, maybe took an extra jungle camp and shopped. Let Me notice that, hey, there's no one in this top lane. It's actually a 1v1, and went straight to lane, got the big purchase. Now answers with his teleport of his own. But yeah, it's still very even, but slightly in the advantage of Gamtee.
Yeah, Let Me does have the flask as well as that Ruby Crystal. Only Ruby Crystal available here for Love Eat Potato, but no mana in order to regen it up, and not going to be too worried about not quite having as much sustain up there, as inherently as a Hecarim, that Spirit of Dread going to give you a whole lot more of that option anyway.
I mean, look, Spirit of Dread, especially in early levels, not that big a sustain tool. The minion cap ensures that you just can't use that necessarily as a sustain tool, but as you go on, if you use it effectively, of course, the spell vamp in team fights, so much extra effective sustain for the Hecarim.
Yeah, and Lovely Potato now trying to clear out this wave. Let Me, as we mentioned, Spirit of Dread going to be used. Actually a bit of damage there onto Lovely Potato, but top lane not going to be all that interesting as far as that is concerned. Huey is going to discover a Voidless down here in the jungle, but he just tunnels his way out. That's going to be fine, and we'll see how this Rek'Sai goes. We've seen Rek'Sais be very, very impactful towards the early stages of the game, but haven't seen a Voidless do too much just yet.
The struggle there for a Voidless is that we mentioned it, Atlas. It was actually you that summated it very early. this is a mid-game comp coming through from LD. You'd say basically every lane, to different degrees, gets outscaled by what Gamtee has provided. You'd expect Hecarim in the late game to be more effective than Shyvana, although apologies to Shyvana, still a very strong late game team fighter. Gragas has more utility than the Rek'Sai, so you would take him in the late game just for that potential disengage. Kassadin over LeBlanc, that's a very standard matchup. Lucian just edging out the Sivir, and Thresh maybe a little bit more flexible than Annie. So because this champion select is kind of lopsided instead of late game threat, you need Rek'Sai to pull off ganks like this to get Legend Dragon snowballing, because in the late game they just haven't picked for a comp to stand up against Gamtees.
Yeah, well, it's not quite working, but Avoidless at least making the right moves here, attempting to get down, but of course Prey Seeker was all he was able to really offer, as Tail and Sync Dream were able to at least disengage far enough to avoid a successful gank. Passer actually looking for something here as Xiaohu's going to get hit by the chains. Avoidless comes through. First blood picks up by the Rek'Sai. And I take back everything I said. I ate those words so quickly.
Excellent clinical play from Avoidless in particular with the flash on Burrow. Lovey Potato's fallen way behind in CS, but hey, a kill credit be nice. No CC though. Means he can't stay on top of Huey.
Yeah, Huey actually heading away from the jungle here. Was able to clear out some camps there as well. Now has a 5 CS advantage, but unable to get that successful gank, and the 400 gold from the first blood going to help Avoidless out to no end, as that Chilling Smite is going to be complemented by the Cinder Hulk buff a little bit quicker. Balmy Cinder probably going to be completed next. This Passer was able to pick up the Chalice of Harmony and a book on top of it. This Twin Bite doing some work here to Let Me as well, and this lane was going well for the horse earlier on, but the Dragon now able to get some damage back. Oh, Dragon's Descent. Not going to quite find him, as Let Me just going to take the long way around. We'll make it back to this wave as it crashes into the turret, and we'll see whether Lovey Potato can get anything from it. Let Me able to smite away that minion to stop from dying to the turret, but doesn't pick up anything else, and everything going to be fine.
It's just very... Oh my goodness. Wraparound gank.
Yep, the return coming through. Xiaohu looking for enough Rift Walks, but doesn't quite have them. Does have a lot of health with that Catalyst still available. Rift Walks over the top. Is Distortion going to be up? No, it's not. And Passer unable to pick up that kill. And that is why you have to focus down the Kassadin before level 6. And thankfully, they did manage to do that before.
But look, it's definitely going to delay the timing coming out of this Rite of Ages, because he gets kind of bullied every time he goes for CS. He's fallen 15 CS behind despite being even, purely from the pressure from Avoidless, who's got an extra kill credit over to himself, but started up this extra pressure, because remember, we know that Xiaohu's chunked out in the mid lane. They cannot react to this jungle steal. Yeah,
actually Let Me coming through, finds a couple of members of LD here, but he is going to have to back away. Some nice engages coming through as Let Me. He's found Lovey Potato, doesn't have his ultimate available. There's no flash on this Shyvana. The Rampages doing some work, but no level 6 for Huey. Not going to be able to throw him back, and Shyvana was just a little bit too tanky.
The Onslaught of Shadows already used for gap clear, so that's why gap close, so that's why we haven't seen that cooldown used in the fight. Let Me will continue to grow this CS advantage. Shyvana should be winning this lane matchup. In terms of trade damage, you saw a preview when the Flame Bite and the Burnout was used, how strong the 2v2 damage is, the 1v1 damage is between Shyvana and Hecarim. And then the jungling should be much better as well. We always know that Burnout does that bonus damage to monsters, so should be able to power down those camps. So in both a 1v1 laning phase and just exiting the lane, you tip the advantage to Shyvana in the early game, but Let Me, he's doing some amazing things, whether it's the Trundle last game or navigating a 17 CS advantage on Hecarim versus Shyvana. His top lane play, a big highlight of this quarterfinal so far.
Yeah, really looking fantastic, but Huey has been struggling a little bit on this Gragas pick, not really having quite the effect of a jungle Gragas, but is that because Gragas doesn't quite have any real impact in a gank too early on?
He has decent burst tools in a gank, but remember, he's ganking for Hecarim, who has no CC till level 6. He's ganking for Kassadin.
Flash Tip is there in the bottom lane. His Tail has to relentlessly pursue his way out. Sync Dream fairly tanky, and that was the burst. That was it. And it didn't manage to net a kill.
Yeah, but the culling is not available, so cannot do any sort of ranged farm. He even has to respect the Tibber's burn damage coming through.
Yeah, might actually kill himself if he does too many auto attacks here. Doesn't. But of course, that Molten Shield now being on Tibbers, a lot of people forget that.
That was a very scary bear coming out. You normally only have to respect the burst damage, but literally there was kill pressure under the turret from his pet.
Yeah, from the Tibbers. Tibbers is a very frightening unit coming down from Southwind.
Let Me is still bossing around Love Eat Potato. I have to question whether Love Eat Potato has a lot of practice on these top lane smite laners like Shyvana, because this is a favorable lane matchup and a favorable earlier power spike for the Shyvana. We always know the item timings that Hecarim's looking for. Doesn't have any of them, not even the Cinderhulk. It is already easily navigating this lane against Shyvana.
Yeah, 27 CS in the lead. He's going to finish that Cinderhulk now. Might be able to grab a Ruby Crystal, start his way towards that Phage as well. And Cinderhulk completed. Does have a pink ward in his back pocket inventory as well. And that is going to be fine, just wandering back towards this lane as well. And do you go for the boots too? Do you go for that home guard earlier on, or do you start that Trinity Force as soon as you can? I
think you kind of take the temperature of the game and work out which purchase makes the most sense. If one of your lanes is far behind, at least home guards gives you every 5 minutes an intensely strong potential for gank, burst damage, and then CC from the Onslaught of Shadows. If you're just happily laning, if you're even or ahead in your other lanes and you're contesting for dragons happily, just opt into the Trinity Force. That's the bigger power spike. That's the most expensive of the options, and you can always piecemeal finish your boots at a later stage.
Yeah, and you can see here, actually, it is going to be Kabe and Pasa doing so well in their lanes. You can see Xiaohu's fallen very far behind, about 40 CS here, as this LeBlanc almost able to get even the turret down. And Xiaohu, after a brilliant performance in the earlier stages of last game, just can't do anything here.
I mean, Avoidless is the MVP of this mid lane matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Before the gank that was successful, where they picked up the first blood, Xiaohu was actually even in CS, so it was 37 to 37 or 37 to 38. Now from the gank and the pressure and the snowball of items that have come through, a 42 CS advantage completely off the bat.
Yeah, Tib is onto Sync Dream here as well. Does throw down the box, but doesn't get over the wall with the flash. And LD, these Tibbers plays are pretty huge from Southwind.
And there's a reason that Annie stands next to Janna as the priority support pick, as the instant cast on the initiation of the Tibbers does so many great things. And when you have Sivir, when you have On the Hunt, don't even have to be gated around your flash every 4 to 5 minutes when the distortion boots come through. Tibbers comes out quickly, and instantly Sync Dream dies.
Yeah, and they take down the Dragon off the back of it as well. So 2-0 in the lead here for LG.
All the gold on the Cinderhulk jungler isn't ideal, but we saw Clearlove go the same route and just stack health and be completely unkillable and do consistent damage. And now it's all on Avoidless to do his best Clearlove impression.
Yeah, we'll see whether he can manage that one. Of course, it is the top lane that's the only worry here for LD, as Love Eat Potato not quite having the game that he really wants to. Has gone back, does have his Cinderhulk completed, as well as the Cloth Armor. But Southwind, he gets played back into the team. Letme's looking for Kabe as well, gets skirmished out of this one. The ultimate's still available, as Onslaught of Shadows might be used, but not going to, as Dark Passage going to take him out of there. And Gamtee, they hold back.
It's definitely a home guard boots, or maybe Sheen short of having the damage to turret dive the Sivir especially. Heal still up. Probably was communicated to the horse, so smart of him to disengage. The teleport for nothing, and this is finally some space for Love Eat Potato to just hoover up some laves with the burnout and try and equalize the CS in top.
Yeah, Letme almost with the Phage completed, has boots 1 now as well, and he's pretty quick as he heads back towards this top side of the map. No extra damage going to be put down by Love Eat Potato, who wants to try and dirty farm this one out. Gamtee looking to take down the bottom turret. Oh my goodness, so close. Kabe taking a bit of damage from the culling, but not going to be too worried. Avoidless now has been discovered by the members of Gamtee, as Xiaohu does manage to get out of there. Is he going to be able to get the last Q? Huey flashes. Kabe picks up tail on the bottom side as Love Eat Potatoes coming around the back, and Xiaohu is in so much trouble. No mana though for Pasa, does still manage to pick up the kill, and Avoidless now trying to turn this one around. The horse coming through. Letme sort of finds himself on the other side, and that did not work out very well, and I don't know what happened there in the bottom lane, but that's no good here for Gamtee, and LD really utilizing their mid-game power spikes.
You see the value of health stacking in a snowball situation. They use so much focus fire, cooldowns, mana pool, trying to take down this Rek'Sai, and Rek'Sai just so damn tanky with their health pool, already at 1855 health at 14 minutes, and then just skips away. Of course, has regen when burrowed away, got away. They had no cooldowns left to deal with the oncoming cavalry, and they get taken out. So 4-1 is a very considerable lead for LG, and it's finally starting to open up a bit of space for Shyvana to get back into this lane.
Goodness, 1,800 gold is the lead for Pasa here in the mid lane. Xiaohu so far behind. You can see it's a lot to do with that CS, but Global golds there as well, as it's 2 turrets to nothing here in favor of LG. The bottom lane, of course, is very, very low. Gamtee will be able to collect that one relatively soon, but they do really need to start taking some damage control into account this game, Gamtee, and hold out until their later game power spikes come through.
Reminiscent of Game 1, though, you'd have to say, Atlas. Operation Win Lane Win Game, which is what LD are looking for with, you know, the strong early power spikes. We mentioned the fact they have earlier power spikes in every lane. They've taken 2 turrets. They have CS advantages in multiple lanes. Okay, it's slim in the bottom lane, but quite considerable in mid. And Shyvana starting to get pressure in this top lane as well. They're building up a gold lead, but as you mentioned, they need to keep expanding. They need to keep taking objectives, start pushing up their ward coverage, and start contesting, for example, the enemy blue buff. They have mid turret down and bottom turret down. This next blue respawn should be LD's and deny even more resources from Xiaohu on this Kassadin.
Yeah, Gamtee, they do have it warded up. They've got a lot of vision around that area. We'll see whether they take advantage of it. Of course, teleport's not available for either of our top laners, but Lovey Potato going to have his a little bit sooner, as everyone's going to be collapsing around that area. And Papa Smithy, you're right, as Descent's going to land onto a Voidless, but Tail, he's going to escape using that Dark Passage very, very nicely.
LD at least know what they need to do. That's the thing. I always talk about teams like King, who struggle to realize their win conditions. LD understand. Got mid turret, got bottom outer turret. So much extra space to get wards. What's the easiest thing to contest for? It's both Dragon and, if you're really being aggressive, which LD need to do with their earlier power spikes, the enemy blue.
Yeah, let me actually discovered here by Lovey Potato. Skirmisher actually going to be used on the Horsey, who just devastatingly charges his way away.
But those sort of trades should have summated 16 minutes of laning, not this laning phase at 16 minutes. Let Me should have been well behind 20, 30 CS, much like Xiaohu. That's why I'm a bit kind of puzzled as to what happened in the early levels. You usually don't spend too much time looking at 2 teleport smite tank top laners who are exiting lane before and after every trade, but you'd have to say Let Me was doing trade damage and winning those trades.
Yeah, Huey's actually discovered Lovey Potato here as well. He's going to use the ultimate just to escape over the Baron Pit wall. Sync Dream's going to find him, but not too much going to go on. Of course, a Voidless hanging around in the wings as well. As actually, there's the Mimic Distortion coming through. Pasa trying to trade with Tail, who answers back quite nicely. But Pasa probably needs to hit the Mimic Distortion in order to do any sort of terminal damage here to Tail.
You definitely can't afford to use any of your spells for gap clearing, especially when you're against a Lucian who, with Infinity Edge, has the potential to get multiple crits even from that 20% chance. Because again, both those passive hits counters auto attacks. They work into that 20% chance. We've seen, of all mid laners, of all AD carries, Vasily get 3 crits in 1 rotation of spells. That's the potential. You really have to judge your damage optimally against a Lucian, because the punishment can be severe.
Well, very much is. Carbe going to clear out this mid wave. Void Rush going to be used to this bottom side of the map. Dragon up in 2 seconds. And a Voidless well and truly in position. And you can see LD with so much vision around the area. Dragon number 2 going to be going down with no contest here from Gamtee.
It couldn't be cleaner, Atlas. This is excellent play from LD.
Yeah.
Winning those early lane matchups, excellent early pressure from a Voidless, and then, I mean, a beautiful like star or triangle of wards around this Dragon. The safest Dragon ever. Should be able to contest for every future blue buff. Keep playing this style, and you will win this series, but it's hard to engineer this kind of scenario multiple times in a best of 5.
Well, we'll see whether they can. Of course, this game definitely still in contention here for Gamtee, especially if Xiaohu manages to get some extra damage down, pick up a couple of kills, because we haven't seen a team fight at all this game. We don't know what one looks like.
And that suits LD, but to some degree it suits Gamtee, just because LD are happy to pick up the objectives, and that's just been Gamtee seeding objectives, so they're not giving away multiple kills and objectives to this team of LD. But the power spikes, they're coming through slowly. Phage and most of Ashin completed for the Hecarim. The Rod of Ages stacking up for the Kassadin. Items coming through for all their carries. They're trying to lose the minimum, Atlas, and it works sometimes and it doesn't work other times.
Yeah, and Kassadin was discovered there just a little bit. We are going to have a slight pause, though, ladies and gentlemen, as hopefully Xiaohu's going to be okay. We'll see whether a Voidless manages to lock him down for long enough. Of course, it's difficult to lock down that Kassadin, but so far, LD with a much better performance.
It's just a very clean performance. It's not something we expect necessarily from an LSPL team, so we have to credit them for what they're doing. They're playing they're playing Gamtee off the park in the first 20 minutes. I mean, the one thing you can say, though, about this like second rung or LSPL competition versus top teams is that closing out is not necessarily the strong point of these lower level teams. So they've got themselves an advantage. We'll just have to monitor and wait to see if they can continue to grow it before the natural comp advantages for Gamtee start to hit in around the 30-35 minute mark.
And we've seen Gamtee as well able to team fight very, very well if they get the right situations, and they are able to orchestrate these in the past, or they have been in the past. So we'll see whether they can do that as well, whether that's going to be their way back in here with just a little bit more coordination, a little bit more teamwork available here from this more veteran team.
I'm still in awe at the amount and precision of the wards. Look at this blue side for Gamtee on the minimap. Maybe it's back to your point, though, a bit, Alice. It's probably overwarding, but it's impressive to look at. Yeah,
and they do manage to take away the blue buff as well, so that's not overwarding. They got the objective that the vision allowed them.
Okay, but that vision cost them, I mean, even if we're talking about sheer ward cost, a lot. But Sync Dream?
Yeah. Tibber's not going to net the kill, but it is going to be the Ignite that burns him down. Southwind probably should have figured that one out. But Tibber's just going to hang out in that brush as a bit of a makeshift ward. So they get the blue buff, they get a pick as well. And Xiaohu going aggressive onto Kabe. Still has a lot of his health here as that trade was very nicely played. Let me putting a bit of pressure here on this top side of the map. Love Eat Potato going to have to answer that one. No teleport for either of these top laners. As now LD looking to pressurize the bottom side, and
should group the Sivir with the Gragas just so they can get that turret damage down.
Oh my goodness, that W actually doing a lot of work there as well. As On the Hunt is popped, and Kabe is playing a whole lot more scared this game than he was in the last.
I mean, you have to respect initiation pressure of the Gragas, for example. The damage from the Kassadin in a long lane. You can always kill pressure with all these wards, though.
Knocks him out of the body slam. There is a nice explosive cask as we do have the option of an escape here for Huey, but a Voidless now going to get taken down so low. He's going to die. Huey nets himself. That kill, that Onslaught of Shadows was beautiful from Let Me. Turret going to fall down on the top side of the map as Love Eat Potato gets the last outer. But Gamtee, they're answering some of the pressure, but that's only one kill for a turret.
Yeah, it's the clean use of the Trinity Force power spike from Let Me. Just had that item completed when he teleported in, but as you mentioned, makes his way to bottom. They lose the turret for one kill. It's not a good trade for Gamtee.
No, they lose their Raptors as well, which is definitely unfortunate, as Love Eat Potato actually going to ignore the ward. Doesn't want to go toe-to-toe with Tail here just a little bit, just in case there's any extra vision. But you can see as well, LD, they've got that pink ward sitting in that top side of the map. It's been there for a long time.
Their vision is wonderful, but again, I feel like maybe they'll go through a kind of a learning process like Vici that had these sort of excellent wards, weren't playing around them well enough. They moved more to the carry mode. We saw the moment Jungle Nidalee came into the meta.
Yeah.
We saw Dandy picking that up, stopped buying the Sightstone. They still had good ward coverage because they were smart about where to put them, but the economy of wards was much lower, so they had to be more judicious. Only put wards in important places rather than literally everywhere like we saw on the blue side of Gamtee earlier this game. So far, they're warding very impressive. They've been playing around them to some degree, but you worry that the items they're not building because they're kind of putting so much gold into vision might come to haunt them when Gamtee start to hit their power specs. They need to continue to get the maximum. 3 turrets is a good start, but they need to get more.
Yeah, Xiaohu actually picking up the Boots of Lucidity on his Kassadin. 25% cooldown reduction now sitting in his inventory. And how do you feel about that adaptation to the classic Kassadin build of wanting to pick up that Zhonya's Hourglass a little bit earlier?
Look, 40% CDI is a pretty core tenet to any Kassadin build. In this situation, not running cooldown reduction per level blues that have been very, very common. Has to respect LeBlanc and take that flat magic resistance to make that laning phase a little bit easier. Zhonya's would allow him to dive the backline, but the backline in general is multiple members fighting in the same area. It's not a Jinx who's sitting 700 range back that you kind of have to gap close to assassinate. It's multiple members. Like Sivir's fighting with her tank line in a lot of the situations in the middle of the fight. Not going to have a stasis option, so it's going to have to be a bit more defensive positioning. Might even have to use the Force Pulse defensively for peel rather than necessarily diving the carries till that Zhonya's is complete.
And it is going to be Parsa pushing up this mid lane, preparing for this dragon that has just come back alive. A Voidless trying to zone away the members of Gamtee, setting up this massive ring of vision yet again around this area. A few more wards now placed for Gamtee though, and looks like LD definitely respecting Gamtee's ability to team fight.
Look, LD actually have teleport advantage for a couple of seconds only. They put so much effort into one. They need a pick.
Oh dear, they're looking for it. The explosive cask is going to be used, but they don't pull the trigger. LD now thinking they're just going to take the inner turret, but Sync Dream coming through doesn't land the death sense as the culling comes through. Passer forces out at least a relentless pursuit, but it's a nice rotation. They pick up an inner turret.
And look, there's no way for Gamtee to answer that with Dragon just because so many wards to clear. So predictable their movement.
Oh my goodness, Xiaohu actually rift walked into the chains. Beautiful predictive play to come through as Lovey Potato is going to take out Huey. There's a Dragon's Descent into the backline, and this is a Shyvana with a Thornmail going nuts in this fight. Kabe picks up Sync Dream. Really beautiful stuff. And LG, their strategic play this game has been stunning.
Yeah, LD fighting as a 5-man unit, everyone fighting together, no space between the Sivir and their other threats. Usually that's a strategic hole, but Hecarim had to back away even though he has 3 big items, even though he can dive a backline, had no opportunity to do so. And it looks like Gamtee awkwardly are going to have to trade their first Dragon for Baron.
That is a horrible trade. They may not even be able to get it here as Tail gets taken down very, very low. My goodness, the kill from Passer as Xiaohu. He's going to have to use that Rift Walk over the wall. A Voidless may be caught out, but is it him getting caught or is it Let Me? As look at this Sivir damage. Onslaught of Shadow scares some Krugs, but that's the only thing on the map that's afraid of Let Me here as LD not worried about the horse one bit. Xiaohu taking Lovey Potato on a bit of a wild goose chase as the E is going to register. Lovey Potato able to take his base gate over that wall, so Xiaohu not going to be able to escape him that way. He has to dodge the next Flame Breath.
Can't dodge Smite.
No, you can't. And he lands the last E, so no worries there at all. And
Skill
gets
shots.
a free back.
Skill shots targeted, gets a shot. Everything's coming up Legend Dragon this game, Atlas.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
love the fact that the way they're respecting this Hecarim is just fighting as a 5-man group. So if you ever try and isolate the Sivir, you're just going to get killed by whoever's next to the Sivir. All the AoE magic damage coming through from Shyvana. LeBlanc can just change target to the frontline Hecarim that doesn't have the big tank items fit just yet. Hell, Annie's still doing pretty decent damage herself. Legend Dragon comping around Gamtee great, and we haven't seen the value of the explosive cask to separate the threats because they've all been on top of each other.
Yeah, hasn't been able to work here at all, and Gamtee getting to the point where even with a scaling comp, they're just looking like they can't get back into this game. Like, because of course you can say, yes, they have the late game, blah, 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 but when you have a 9,000 gold lead, you don't get to that point, and they've just got so many more items.
And the late game's always relative. Sometimes the scaling comp gets the advantage early, and the late game isn't even a relevant metric to discuss. There is a time when teamfights won't be going Legend Dragon's way, but you misfire on one. Legend Dragon have all these objectives down. They can just power down the base, and then imbalances of the likes of Baron just make all scaling discussions moot. That's just the reality of competitive League of Legends, is that you can't just pick a team and say, just show up at 30 minutes, things will work out, because there's dragons, there's barons that stack, there's dragons that stack up, there's the Baron. And Legend Dragon, they want another turret and maybe even a dive.
Yeah, they're going for it. Here's Dragon sent there into the backline. Lovey Potato is so deep, but not taking too much damage as Kabe's going to take down Let Me. My God, that triple kill was massive and instant from Passer, doing so much AoE with the distortion. Tail goes down as well, and that is a clean ace apart from Lovey Potato in favor of LD. Really fantastic stuff. They'll take an inhibitor, and is that going to be it?
I mean, the crazy thing is Shyvana doesn't have CC, but they all peeled onto her, and then the Mimic distortion, instant triple kill, prompts the surrender, a necessary surrender from Gamtee. And I believe this is the first game, no, not the first game that's been picked up, but of the series that I've cast, the first LSPL game picked up here for Legend Dragon, 1-1. And what a clean performance, playing around their win conditions, warding around objectives, then taking them. That's the sign of a practice team. That's the sign of an LPL team. And Legend Dragon, they're going to try and recreate that momentum this series because they really played that game well.
They looked beautiful on the Rift here. And we talked about this team being sort of a protect the AD carry base team. And yes, Kabe played fantastically. But man, it wasn't about that. Passer was brilliant. A Voidless was fantastic on the Rex side. Gamtee going to have to rethink their bans. But ladies and gentlemen, it's a best of 5. It's now all tied up 1-1. LD up against Gamtee. We're going to have a short break, but we'll be back with Game 3 very soon.